It's difficult to find genuinely scary sleepover stories, but when I do, oh, they're good. And these are honestly some of the best I've found. You're going to see exactly what I mean. My name is Danny Burke. This is the top 10 scary sleepover stories, part 3. Interrupting my own video just to tell you guys to check out eKosher, a search engine that uses all profits to plant trees. More people searching means more trees planted. You can't argue with that. Link is in the description. Starting off at number 10 now, we have Beep. This one comes from Reddit user Jenna Dorazio. She said that she was watching her friend's house one day while she and her family were on vacation. Her elderly grandma lived in the house too. She stayed up watching TV late, so she decided to just sleep over. She called her boyfriend at the time to talk before bed from the house phone. And during that call, a beep sound would happen every so often. It sounded like someone was on the other phone in the house and just pressing a button over and over again. She kept asking her boyfriend if he heard that same beep. He didn't though. Then another call came through and she clicked over and the voice from the other end said the word beep, and then just hung up. She freaked out, called her dad, who lived up the road, to come and stay the night because she feared for her life. To this day, she said it was the creepiest thing ever. Moving on to number 9 now, we have the knife. This one comes from Reddit user apot27. Now, she said when she was about 13, her parents went camping along with her aunt and uncle. She wasn't a big fan of camping though, and so was allowed to stay at home with her cousin. They had some friends over too, Whitney, Mary, and Monique. They did the typical sleepover stuff, ate junk food, watched movies, gossiped about boys, that sort of thing. For some reason, they thought it would be a good idea to have a seance, like you do. They set it up in her cousin's bedroom at the front of the house and began. Her cousin and 2 of her friends began to scare the 3rd friend, Monique. They laughed it off though. A while later, they had forgotten about the scary game and continued joking around. She fell asleep that night and was awoken by the sound of the other 4 girls screaming. She jumped out of bed and the girls said Whitney was acting strange. They said she was making unearthly sounds and wielding a knife. They all scrambled to the front door, which was Martina's bedroom, and then rushed out of the door and into the light of sunrise. They ran down the street with Whitney chasing them, slashing the knife in the air. Eventually, they ducked into a post office and lay flat on the floor. They could hear Whitney calling out to them as she stepped on the gravel road outside. Eventually, she left them alone though, and the girls were able to get help. To this day, they still believe Whitney was affected by their little seance session. Next up at number 8 now, we have the fright. This one comes from Reddit user Torvan. Now, she said that when she was 15, she and some friends were having a sleepover. One of her friends, Steph, was always very rough with the other girls. That night, she, Steph, and the other girls began chasing each other just as a bit of fun. Soon, though, Steph got too rough and tackled her to the ground and pinned her there. She was genuinely a bit scared, and the other girls started to notice that it was a little bit too close for comfort. They grabbed Steph's limbs, tying her arms behind her and her legs together. It took 20 minutes because she was strong and struggled. When they had succeeded, they proceeded to watch some TV. Somehow, though, she escaped. They ran upstairs, 3 girls got to the bedroom, and she ran to the bathroom. She locked herself inside, and Steph started banging on the door. She didn't know how long she was in there for, but the sun eventually came up, and she spent the whole night in the bathtub. Not sure how I feel about that one. I mean, sure, her friend sounds pretty scary, but tying them up and just leaving them? A little bit weird. Next up at number 7 now, guys, we have the mirror. We've got some long ones in this video, so here's a nice little short and sweet one to balance it out. This one comes from Chemical Robot. Now, he says that one night he and his little brother slept in his sister's room on her floor. When they woke up the next morning, the mirror from her bedroom wall had been taken off the wall and was now between him and his brother. He woke up staring at his own reflection. Can you even imagine how unnerving that would be first thing in the morning? Nobody in the house knew how it happened or even how someone could do that without one of them waking up. He said he still gets chills when he thinks about that stuff that he, his friends, and family saw in that house. This includes the ghost of an old man who was seen 3 times in his bedroom, once by himself. Perhaps he was the one who moved the mirror. Moving on to number 6 now, we have the shadow. This one was told by Starlight Dreams. She said that one night as a kid, she had a sleepover where they set it up in the living room. Immediately, she felt like they were just being watched. They went to one of the girls' houses to get some stuff. It was very dark by this point and she lived quite far away. They felt like something was following them the entire way, but it always ended up being something like a car going past. As they approached their friend's house, they heard a scream, a banshee-like scream that pierced the night air. At the side of the road, they saw a shadow run into the forest. They grabbed their friend's stuff and began walking very quickly back to the house. Now they really felt like someone was following them. When they got back, they tried to forget about it, just have some pizza, watched some TV. Suddenly though, the lights went out. They all started screaming. Everyone fell on the bed as a shadow entered the kitchen. One of them tried to grab the flashlight, but before she could, the shadow just disappeared. They kept seeing it as they tried to get to sleep, dancing around the room. In the end, they all fell asleep watching it as a calm feeling washed over them, almost as if it was casting a spell on them. We have the Ouija. This one comes from Reddit user Krull. Now he said he was told this one by his mum. When she was a teenager, she slept over at a friend's house. They were up playing games while the parents watched TV. She and her friends were on the floor playing a board game. It turned out to be a Ouija board. She didn't know what it was though at the time when they started asking the board questions. They ended up finding out that there was a spirit in the house and they asked it to show itself. Nothing happened. They demanded that the spirit show itself. This time, all the lights in the house went out. The TV, the lamps, everything just blinked off. A second later, they came back on again. They asked the Ouija board, "Who are you?" The piece moved around the board in big circles and began to spell out the letters D-E-V-I-L. This can't be real, they thought. They asked the devil to show itself. After a few moments, the TV just goes out. In the reflection of the TV, sitting in the living room next to them was the shape of something dark, sitting right next to them. The house went cold, so cold. They stopped the game immediately and never looked back. Next up at number 4 now, we have the sandwich. This one comes from Reddit user Necronym. She said that when she was around 11 or 12, she lived with her grandparents. They were always away for their anniversary, and so she was allowed to have a friend over for the weekend. They trusted him enough to not give him a babysitter. This was quite a lot of trust, seeing as they lived way out in the mountains. Their closest neighbor was about a mile away. That night, she and her friends were playing Guitar Hero to about midnight when they heard noises coming from the kitchen. They presumed it was just the cat messing around and ignored it at first. A few minutes later though, the noise happened again, and this time it was louder. It sounded like jars clanking and silverware bashing together. They both walked into the hallway and could see that there was someone in the kitchen. There was the shadow figure of a man standing in front of the fridge. They looked at each other, not quite sure what to do. The man was in between them and the phone. Then her friend just spoke up and calmly said, "Hey, who are you?" She said it so calmly that it scared the man. He dropped all of the stuff he had in his arms and ran straight out of the house and into the darkness. They called the police. It turns out the strange man had been making a sandwich in the fridge, and the police never figured out who he was. Moving on to number 3 now, we have Freedom. This one comes from Mount Lover Girl. She said that when she was younger, her friend invited her to a birthday sleepover with 3 other mutual friends. The 5 of them were messing around, having fun, sharing ghost stories, some of them real, some of them not. One of the girls, Jody, began telling her story, and at that moment there was a bang at the door. They were all scared because the parents of the house had gone out for the night, so they were home alone. They decided to lock all the doors and windows and then meet back in the room they slept in. Jody didn't come back though, and when they returned, they found that a window in the room was open. They assumed Jody just went out to try and scare them. If that was true, it was working. They checked out the window and no one was out there, so they locked it. They checked the whole house downstairs and then they heard screeching. They went into the room that they thought it was coming from, and there was Jody trying to shut a window that screeched when it grinded along the bottom. When they all tried to shut it though, nothing happened. Suddenly the bang on the door happened again. When they opened it though, nobody was there. It must just have been a tree branch banging in the wind. Just as the door closed though, they heard a whisper, very low but very clear. It said, "Let me be free." They froze. They ran to their beds and rarely spoke of that night again. Next up at number 2 now, we have Light as a Feather. This is a story from D. Taylor 85. She told it like this. The story took place when I was about 14. I'm 22 now, and the memory still scares the crap out of me. My friend had a huge slumber party for her birthday. The house was very old and was rumored to once be part of the Underground Railroad. Her attic was a series of rooms that mirrored her downstairs, except for one that had a hole cut out of the floor. It looked like a tunnel led from it and went about 3 feet back before it was blocked off with rubble and bricks. She would always tell us stories of weird stuff that happened in her house. Her room had the stairs to the attic attached to it, and she would hear sounds coming from up there like people walking around. And once her electric keyboard that was up there just went off on its own. It was playing Old Susanna on repeat, which is kind of strange because her name is Susan. We, being a bunch of teenage girls, decided to play that silly game, light as a feather, stiff as a board. We were all sitting around in a circle with candles concentrating on getting this girl to float when the stuff hit the fan, so to speak. All All at once, the room we were in dropped in temperature and the candles all flicked on at once, like there was a breeze in the room, which there wasn't. We all screamed and jumped up. We all piled on her couch. There were at least 10 of us, so you can imagine. That's when we heard a loud boom come from the coat closet connected to the room we were sitting in. Almost at the same second, a dark shadow ran around the wrap around the porch. We watched it move through the windows, and at one point it passed right by where we were all sitting. We didn't hear the sound of anyone running through, which was odd. It stopped at the front door, and that's when we realized the door wasn't locked. Not that it would have really mattered. But still, I decided to be the brave one and jumped up and ran and locked the door. When I did this, I could clearly see out of the window, and no one was there. Human, at least. I flicked on the light on the back of the couch, and slowly we got our nerves back. Eventually, we opened the door to the coat room and saw that her coat rack had been knocked over by something. None of us slept that night, and needless to say, I never spent the night at her house again. And finally, number one now, we have the creeper. This one came from J.S. Child, who told it like this. One night, my sisters had a slumber party. I was probably like 6 or 8 then. They were all up watching TV in our living room. Our living room is fully open and had a dining room at one end with only a couch separating the two areas. Besides the dining room was a big sliding glass door that led to our deck. Well, I've been harassing my sisters and their friends, bugging them. They were all 5 to 7 years older than me while they watched TV. When I went into the kitchen and got a drink, the lights were all out in the rooms, just the TV on, but the outside deck had a light on. As I walked back from the kitchen into the dining room, I saw a large man standing on our back deck. Just standing there, not walking around. I didn't think he could see us. The curtain was drawn, but there must have been a gap in the curtains he could see in through. I just froze there for a second, terrified. Then I walked fast to my oldest sister and told her someone is watching us. At first, she thinks I'm joking, but I got her and one of her friends to look at the sliding glass doors. We all instantly freaked out and then bolted to the back bedroom where my dad is, and we woke him up. He went outside and saw the footprints in the snow, but we still don't know who the creeper was watching us on our back deck. Well, guys, I'd love to say let's do more of those, but if I'm frankly honest here, I'm kind of done with this series. You'd be surprised how hard it is to find scary sleepover stories, especially 30 of them. Perhaps we'll do a part 4 made up of your scary sleepover stories. Leave yours in the comment section if that's what you'd like. Thanks for watching. As always, guys, my name is still Danny Burke, and I'll see you all in the next video.